Hello again. Hello again, VC and other vinyl junkies. 2 videos in almost 2 days. It's getting pretty bad. Went into town today to pick up the speaker off the big stereo, which has been repaired. Fortunately, a warranty issue. Unfortunately, one of the cones had become, drivers had become off-centered for some reason anyway, so I'm going to send that away back to the manufacturers, so that's cool. But that's all sorted. Had a few other chores to do in town, and of course went to the record shop. So I ended up actually managing to get to 2 record shops today, because for once in a while, Galaxy Records down in Sanassa Street was open, and actually managed to pick up some records off them. So I might actually show what I picked up there first, if I can remember which I picked up from where. These ones, yes. So the Galaxy is a little tiny wee record shop in Christchurch, next to a live venue called the Dark Room, which play a lot of local bands play there. I've never actually been to a concert there yet. It's only a very small place from what I hear, and so the shop's not open very often because the guy that owns it actually works full time and then looks after the shop as a part-time thing. It's not as big and as full of records as it used to be. It used to be one of the main second-hand and importing shops around Christchurch for many years, and I bought a lot of records off them over the years. But unfortunately, yeah, the earthquakes hit them pretty hard, and finding somewhere that they can afford to rent is pretty difficult now. Anyway, and they don't have a lot of stock. So, but anyway, surprisingly, I got quite a bit of stuff from there. So we'll start with this one. Unfortunately, this one here is probably the worst one I bought today. No More Tomorrows by a guy called Steve McDonald. Now, looking at it, and it's on Ode Records. Now, Ode Records, as I've mentioned before, perhaps, is a New Zealand label that started in the late 60s, and they put out a lot of jazz stuff, and I picked up a couple of good jazz records on Ode Records, and so I was looking at this thinking that looks kind of like a bit like a jazz cover, doesn't it? You know, it's got that feel to it, and unfortunately there was not a lot of information on the back of it, and it turns out that it's actually an EP. It's only got 5 songs and it's at 45 RPM. I thought, and there's no timing on it, times of the songs. Turns out it's actually very processed 80s pop, and it's not very good at all, unfortunately. So that was a bit of a bad buy. But to compensate for that, I actually picked up this ECM record. They don't have very much jazz there at all, but I was quite pleased to see this. This is ECM 1157 from 1981. As you can see, it's Meredith Monk Dillman music. Now, I've heard of Meredith Monk, and I know that she had recorded some material for John Zorn's label, Tzaddik. And as a matter of fact, recently I remember put out a kind of a DVD collection or something on his label. So she's been around a while. Never heard any of her music before. This is mostly vocal with some piano. It's actually a gatefold too, by the way, which is unusual for ECM. Yeah, it's a stunning record. It's absolutely stunning. I'm very, very impressed. Lots of interesting things happening on it. It starts off quite minimal with her and a piano, but then she brings in some other vocal people to help her out later on, and I haven't had a real good listen to, but what I heard of it tonight was really impressive. So that made up for the previous buy in a big way. Also, while I was there, I spotted this. Now, this is a reissue, one of the reissues that are coming out, and I know a lot of you have seen this, and a lot of people have got this. I've got a few Sonic Youth records on CD. I used to have quite a few on vinyl up until maybe the mid-90s, and I kind of sort of stopped collecting their music, just kind of got into other stuff really. So although I think I have Rather Ripped, which was a 2003 on CD. I mean, I haven't listened to them for so long, but yeah, I thought, bugger it, I'm going to get into these reissues, and I did say that I was going to start picking them up for this month, so this is the first one, and it was actually reasonably priced in the shop so that I didn't have to pay postage to get it here, so probably saved a few dollars on that one. The final one I picked up at that shop, yeah, I'm sure this is the last one, was this one which I've been looking for online and hadn't been able to find. And this is something that was put on to me by one of Chris Walker's videos. Easton is the name of the band, and Hope and Wine is the name of the record. It's a double LP on RPR Records, Rough Appeal Records. It says 2012, I think. Now, I understand from what Chris described it is that, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. I've got through several of these tonight, but not this one because the All Blacks were playing tonight, and the rest of my evening was watching them. But I understand that this was kind of inspired, written for about the earthquakes in Christchurch in 2010, 2011. So yeah, it'll be quite interesting. I think it's got lyric sheets and everything with it. Yes, it has. So yeah, no, looking forward to listening to it. I think I did have a listen to a couple of tracks maybe on Bandcamp from memory, and it sounded pretty cool. So yep, I picked that up. Quite pleased to find that. And I mean, local Christchurch band, which is really cool. So I like to support local musicians as much as I can nowadays. A little bit more than I have in the past. Anyway, the next lot I went to, of course, was the main record shop here at Penny Lane, and I took a whole bunch of old CDs that I never play anymore, and particularly didn't really like that much. So I got quite a few of them, but didn't get a lot for them, but I got a good trade in. So first one I found, not the first one I found, but one that grabbed me attention was this, Capability Brown. This is called Liar. It's a compilation album from 1976 and picks up a bunch of songs from them. I think they only had 2 albums out from what I could see. So this is fairly much 70s rock. I wouldn't say hard rock perhaps. I've listened to a couple of tracks off this tonight before the rugby started. It's I actually came across them on blog and may have downloaded one of their records off a blog, which is a way I found out about a lot of obscure records from the 70s, 60s and 70s on blog sites where people were posting them. I'm not sure, I think people still do that, but back in sort of before the turn of this decade it was quite well known thing to do, and I picked up on a lot of music like that, and a lot of that music I didn't think I'd ever actually find on record in Christchurch, but so I was quite surprised to find this, and this is actually a UK version, it's not a New Zealand release, but I was familiar with a couple of tracks off that from one of those blogs, and I think the same applied to this record here. And these were not actually quite that cheap, so the stupid thing is in Christchurch, New Zealand, is that these records are selling for $40 to $50 each, whereas you see them on Discogs in the States for like $2 to $3 or a little bit more. By the time you convert that, it might be $5 or $6 New Zealand, but then by the time you get it here, the mail from the States is just over the top. Anyway, this one here, 10-wheel drive with Gina Raven, Construction Number 1. This was their first album from 1969. This is a New Zealand release. Yep, Phillips Records Limited, New Zealand. This is kind of she's a pretty bluesy type singer, but there is some jazzy type horns on here, so it's kind of a jazzy rock thing. Pretty impressive. Wasn't the album I'd heard, but again, this is another one I'd seen and heard off a blog a few years back, and there was a really, really cool song which isn't on this particular album that she did, which they did. I can't quite remember what it was, but never mind. And then this one here caught my eye, which is one I'd actually have on my want list from Discogs, which I can now remove. I didn't expect to find this in New Zealand, and it is a New Zealand release. Canadian band, I think they were. yeah, this is again is another one that had been posted on a blog that I was following a few years ago, and I downloaded it and heard it a few couple of times. Thought it's quite good. I mean, it's not a great album. I wouldn't say it's great. None of these albums are like really, really fantastic. They're just pretty good sort of second or third tier bands. You know, good to have in the collection. I like them. Yeah. So yeah, but I was really pleased to get that one. Actually, it was because it was on my want list as well. So. And then we picked up, I saw this one here. Now this is one of my favourite bands from the 60s. This is, as you can see, Spirit, Randy California and Ed Cassidy, who were the last two members of the original two members of Spirit, were still together. This is from 1975. It's a double album, gatefold. There was the last album of theirs that I really got into, or that I have a copy of, was the 12 Dreams of Dr. Sardonicus, which is just a fantastic album, and so are the couple of the earlier ones from the 60s, late 60s. I think there was one other album coming out before this, so I'm not familiar with this at all, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it, so hopefully it'll live up to expectations. Still cool to have that, and it actually wasn't too badly priced. Now, in the New Zealand sections, I did happen to find this one here, Cake Kitchen. This is also on RPR Records. Reissue. I think this is a reissue, but I have no idea from when. And I don't really know much about it. I've seen a couple of people on Facebook in New Zealand here had been showing this record. I haven't even had a chance to listen to it yet, so hopefully it's all right. So yeah, can't say much about that, to be honest, at the moment. But I did pick it up. It's in pretty good nick, but it's second hand because it was in the second hand bin, and the vinyl looks fairly clean, but there were some marks on it. Yeah, another second hand New Zealand piece that I picked up. This one here caught my eye, partly because it's on Unsung Records from 1983, and I'd picked up another Unsung record last week or the week before, which I showed on an earlier video. This album was recorded in 1983, and there's a reasonably big lineup on the album. There's something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 musicians. Ivan Zagny. Yeah, I think his name was mentioned by Chris Walker. Who didn't he do an album with Don McGlashan? I think, Chris, if you're watching this. Yeah, this absolutely blew me away. Actually, this is very quirky, sort of pop jazz. It has some of the ingredients of that sort of quirky jazz music from the Braille label with the 6 Volts and the Primitive Art Group. I don't think there's any people names I recognise perhaps from that, really. No. So it's got a bit of that in it, and then it goes into all sorts of more esoteric, almost operatic places towards the end of it, but it's got some amazing music on it. So this was a really good score. I'm very, very impressed with that. So that's another great addition to my New Zealand music collection. And then when we got home tonight, in the mailbox was two more records. This one I've been waiting for a while. I had to get it from overseas, but it is a New Zealand album. This is the Unknown Mortal Orchestra. Again, this is something that Chris Walker has put me onto from his radio show, and I think the song Multi-Love won Song of the Year last year or something, which is the first track on this album, and actually I think it's also the title track of the album. Yes, it is. So I haven't played this yet, but I'm looking forward to it, listening to this. I don't think the vinyl's any sort of, no, just fancy, nothing fancy, just black vinyl. So that was in the mail finally today, because last time I got an email that said they couldn't get hold of a copy, but they managed to find it. And finally in the mail today, and I showed this on my other video that I made only just last night. This one also arrived today. This is the first volume of The Cosmic Machine, which is playing in the background behind me. As you can see, it's a gatefold. So another bunch of weird French French electronic music. This one is pretty disco-y as well, to be honest. I thought someone said that it wasn't. As I said in my last video, I was expecting it a little bit more avant-garde, experimental, which there are small elements of it, but to be honest, it's pretty straight ahead in places. But it is good music. I mean, it's not commercial disco music. It's certainly mutant disco in a way, which is a word that has been used in these liner notes here. Yeah, probably more along the lines of Kraftwerk and bands like that. So yeah, definitely more electronic, very Moog. Is it Moog? M-O-O-G, the synthesizer keyboard thingies that were in that came out in the 70s. It's very, the music's very Moog driven, a lot of it. So definitely worth having. I think definitely excellent. But I say it wasn't, again, not quite what I was expecting. Remember, this is the one I showed last time if you saw it. So great to have both volumes, and they weren't particularly cheap. And this one here is also a limited edition. Now this one isn't, well, probably is limited in a way, but this one is actually a numbered limited edition. I've got number 1600 and 1617 on the back there, and also, which the other one was just standard black vinyl, this one is actually, come on, I can get it out. Pretty cool. Almost it is see-through, translucent, whatever you want to call it. Yep, vinyl. So that's pretty cool. I don't think I've got another colour like that, one colour like that before. So that was pretty cool. I'm not sure what the limited edition of this is supposed to be, or how many numbers, but I don't think it'll be in the tens of thousands, to be honest. So yeah, great to have that. And I mean, like I say, it's not what I was expecting, and it is a little bit more disco-y, funky music, but it is pretty cool. And it's not, it is a little bit more esoteric than that. So anyway, that is me again for another night. It's been a good day, hard on the wallet, and good on the collection. So looking forward to getting through all those records and listening to what I haven't heard. Anyway, thank you, and see you again next time.